Pope Watch for the team, and all the Catholics Pope Watch for
Pope. Conclave started.
It's Nick, it's sweet baby Nick, and Izzy, and Natalia, and I.
Okay, we are live to YouTube.
You can't miss Mike.
Cut down.
He cares about it more than anybody.
Recording and back up. Okay, I'm going to mute myself here then. Ro, can you check your mic real quick?
Yeah.
I mean, Ra, sorry.
Yeah, or Ray.
Ray.
To you, since you call me Rachel.
Yep.
I love it.
Love it.
Listen, if it was worth learning your name, I would have done it by now.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
We already know you're prudish, so it's just like, what's the point? Okay, here we go. So we are good to go. Let me start the commercial. Yeah.
There are worse things.
There are. Well, actually, are there? Okay, commercial
Can't wait
started.
A boy or two, even though the neighborhood thinks I'm
All right,
trashy.
Javier sounds really bad in my ears.
Oh, are you singing? You're singing.
It's from Greece.
I agree. Really
Is that-
staticky there all of a sudden.
Yeah,
it Brazil?
Gabe, Javier's.
Yeah.
No,
Like,
I heard it too.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I don't know what that.
Yeah, there's something up now.
There
No,
are.
But that's
words
yeah, it's out of my
It was
hands.
just my singing.
Let's try to figure out the Javier thing here.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing that's just coming in from them clean. I don't have a bad signal at all.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know what to say.
Well, I don't care.
Okay, all right.
So is it just Brian that hears me like that, or do you guys hear me badly?
No, so when you sang it came in staticky. Now it's not coming in staticky. So
I'll refrain from singing.
yeah, no more singing. Sorry.
Luckily, that's not our podcast.
But actually, it's weird thing is I didn't hear it staticky, which means I love it, Javier.
Here we go. Starting the commercial.
Here we go.
Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Wrong About Everything podcast. I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
I am former Republican Senate Majority Leader Amy Koch.
I am still in love with HHS, Rochelle Westland.
I have told the conclave to stop calling. I will not accept. Javier Morillo.
And we are
Wrong about
Wrong about
everything.
everything.
all right. Podcast Catholics. Why you no Pope?
Well, it's
It just
just the first
started.
day, and this is largely ceremonial. Give us a
How
break.
disappointing would it be if on the first day they were like, sure.
There's no drama in that.
Wouldn't be disappointing.
No
Wouldn't
drama.
be disappointing at all.
Oh, well, for us it would be.
It would be Wednesday.
We need more prayer time.
It feels like a long time already, though.
It's
We got 7 more
Well-
rosary days to go.
Jeepers Creepers. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I watched
Yeah.
some. I watched some of it today. One of our coworkers had it on when we were.
There's nothing to watch.
She was watching people walk up there and say blah 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 blah, and then the next person blah blah.
Well, the
blah,
balloting
that-
takes like an hour and a half.
I know. Yeah.
Now that's dumb. That's dumb. I'm in no. I don't think they have to be in a hurry. But why is everyone watching?
I don't know.
Like it's only news when like you'll.
When the white
when the
smoke
clou-
comes.
What color is the cloud? White or black?
White.
Wait,
Wait.
White when?
there's a
When
new
we have a
pope.
pope.
Black when you don't.
Yeah. Or whatever color that is. I'm colorblind. Is it gray?
And pink if it's a girl.
Yes. Large celebration.
Well, everybody, welcome to the Minnesota Credit Union Network studios, deep within the recesses of MBC Studios here in Northeast Minneapolis. We always appreciate having our podcast producer, Gabe Noah, in the other room, making sure you can actually hear us. Please feel free to go to our website, www.wrongabouteverything-podcast.com. And we hope you're watching us on YouTube right now. We're really trying to push people to YouTube so you can see us, you can hear us. Please like and subscribe. Send it to your friends. We're really pushing that. We appreciate that very much if that is where you are finding us.
And for fans of the Tranche Master General, which we all know that we are, Ryan Smith, we're hoping to get him on the podcast sometime in May because the credit unions have a big announcement for the summer that people in Minnesota are going to like.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do we know what that is?
I do know what it is. I'll
So we
tell you
can't
off
spoil
the
it?
air. We don't. We want Ryan to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully the good people at Bradshaw and Bryant have something cool to announce as well.
they do, and it's that you're innocent this time.
Until proven guilty. Bradshaw and Bryant, their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Please contact them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com. I actually texted with Mike Bryant today because a family member was in the need of an attorney in Illinois. And I wanted to see if he had any friends, relatives, or contacts down there for him. So
Very nice.
Mike is a good friend and a good sponsor of this podcast, and we appreciate him very much. Well, everybody, if you can remember a few weeks back, the good people at the state of Minnesota felt very strongly about making sure that you can be free to eat beaver in the state of Minnesota. And this week, the Minnesota Supreme Court ruled that a woman being topless or otherwise exposing her bare breasts does not inherently qualify as lewd under the current Minnesota statute. The ruling, which was released late last week, overturned a Court of Appeals decision against a woman who, in 2021, who was observed in Rochester walking around a gas station parking lot with her breasts exposed. The records show that the woman had exposed herself multiple times to an officer, and it looks like it was the same officer over and over. And then he arrested her and found the cocaine in her purse.
Well, so it might have been the cocaine.
It might have been the cocaine, but without trying to overly sensationalize this, it's an interesting evolution of society to say, if Brian McDaniel can have his furry B cups out, why couldn't
Jesus
Terrible
Christ.
visual.
That was an image.
Well, first of all, when it comes to when we talk about breastfeeding
I'm
and all of
gonna
those
file
things.
charges.
What?
I'm filing charges.
Oh, against him now?
Yes.
Okay.
Because imagining Brian's, what you call them, furry B cups,
which is actually
grosser than anything that woman did.
that's actually a Justin Bell line, but yes, hey. Yeah, evidently anything goes. So
Justin's an A cup at most.
well, now he actually lost a lot of weight too. So, but in any event, I think this is interesting because I can definitely see, and I'll kick it over to Ro, our real attorney here in a second, but I can kind of see that if there is no act that makes it anything other than just somebody having their stuff out, I can see how differentiating between male breasts and female breasts could be something that would not satisfy equal protection and whatnot.
Has this not ever been tested before?
Probably
I guess
a lot.
not a lot.
Probably
right?
a lot, but not in a way that was in favor of the bare breasts. Probably.
I think in different ways. Like when you go to all the free speech and pornography cases that were you'll know it when you see it. And there's there's lines of for it to become lewd before it is considered something that is porn versus just naked, I guess. But I think it's an interesting space. And I think whoever said breastfeeding, I think that is a...
Well, that's always an issue, right? Can you breastfeed in public? Where should you breastfeed in public? And I think that is something that I've heard about a lot. And I want to be very supportive of women and mothers that are out there getting it done, however they can get it done.
But also just the sexualization of women's bodies.
Case is, right. This case has gone far beyond that. But how do you overcome 1,000 years, 2,000 years?
Probably all the years.
All the years? I
don't know.
All the years of what?
Of women's breasts being,
in all kinds of paintings throughout
Right.
years. And
Yeah, I don't.
that's not...
Wait, you're saying that they've been considered lewd for that long? Or
not
they've
lewd, I would say sexual.
No, sexual.
I think lewd is different than...
I mean, the Greeks and let's see, and did Renaissance painters paint
that's a good
the
question.
nude women? they definitely did in the modern. Like, I mean, like nude breasts have been a part of the whatever and National Geographic. Like,
For sure, for sure.
The whole thing is I mean, it's like it's the whole thing about like it's just silly. I feel like I mean it's often couched in like that men can control themselves, which seems like a man problem, not a female breast problem. But whatever. Hey, ladies, I say free them.
Thanks, Javier.
I don't know why. I don't know why you're looking at me.
I just am waiting for you. What you have to say.
I always have a blanket ready to throw over you at any time. So. But no,
I'm just curious about you.
I mean, yes. I mean, I think obviously we could be a little juvenile and laugh about this, the way we did the beaver thing. But I mean, I definitely see how it is something that where men and women are not treated equally, and that this is not saying that under all circumstances you can just walk around with your stuff out. And I mean, I guess the next logical step would be, what if a man is walking around without his pants on? If he's not doing something sexual with it, does that mean that this is and I think that gets to be, we get more and more uncomfortable, but that's not what the law is based on. The law is not always based on what is your comfort level. It is, about, how are we treating men and women similarly or differently.
I mean, I think the equivalent of a female nipple is not a male genital; it's a male nipple.
Yeah, no, I'm
and
saying, but like if the next thing is, if breasts are okay, what makes genitals different? And then
what makes booty different? What about dudes? I mean,
well, we already see booty on TV.
You see boobs
on like regular broadcast.
Yeah, you can see
that happened. ABC did that like in the 90s.
Sipowicz on
Sipowicz,
NYPD
exactly.
Blue or something like that, wasn't it?
NYPD Blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was the weirdest butt to show on that show, but it was still a butt.
Well, it was kind of genius. Though, because it wasn't like a sexy butt. It was the least sexy butt.
It really was the least sexy butt. But
and if you don't know who Sipowicz was, he was played by Dennis Franz, who looks like a guy from Chicago who would be a copper in New York.
You know what, Brian? We're not apologizing for being Gen X anymore.
Oh.
If you don't know who Sipowicz was, look it up.
Dennis Franz.
Look it up.
I didn't know who it was.
I did.
Look it up.
You did?
No.
I did. Show it to me.
Like, have any of you been to a beach in Europe?
Or a beach?
Like,
of course. Well, I've been to a topless beach in Europe when I was 19 years old, right? Like, that's very much.
I mean, from a booty,
very accepted
boobies everywhere.
From a booty perspective, were you at Lake Minnetonka last year? Like, I mean, I feel like female swimsuits has shifted into that space too.
They're completely cheeky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just
Minnetonka's disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, no, the water is, but that's
water,
because
yes.
the
the
things
water,
that those
water
bros are doing in
the
there.
water's full of poop.
Yeah.
Don't go in the water.
Especially
you
Big
don't want
Island
to.
around
If you
4th
don't
of
like
July.
norovirus, don't go to Big Island.
Do not poopify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka.
We've been warning people for years on that.
A classic wrong about everything episode title.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Staying in Minnesota.
Sure.
This has been a screwy year for those of us who work up at the Minnesota State Capitol. It is a year where it is really hard to kind of pin down what are these legislators doing. A lot of days it feels like the Republicans don't want to do anything and the Democrats don't want to fight for anything, and it's almost like they're not even taking political stances. It's almost like feels like they're not doing anything at all. They're focusing on but yesterday in the Senate there was a vote on earned sick and safe time where a contingent of Blue Dog Democrats broke from the DFL and voted with Republicans to allow small farms
of under five,
and
five and
small
under.
employers to
to
not have to go forward with some of the earned sick and safe time rules, which makes sense. I mean, obviously, I think that makes sense because some of these things are very difficult for small employers to go forward with. But that aside, because who cares what I think? No one cares what I think. I think it's a very interesting break from kind of DFL doctrine that some of them are saying that they were going to align with business and small business rather than unions and other parts of the DFL. What's the right word? The DFL, the people who are their constituents. Javier, what's your view on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think the whole blue dog phenomenon is so it's just so weird because the name is literally from the 90s. Like that is like it's such an old and played out reaction by Democrats, by some Democrats who take every loss to mean we should become more like Republicans. So people who literally voted to enact Earn Sick and Save Time just last session, now undoing it, and who just last session were just Democrats, and then Donald Trump won, and they started calling themselves blue dog Democrats. This is exactly what voters don't like about Democrats, is that they don't stand for anything, and the ease with which a Senator Matt Klein, who as longtime listeners of the show know, I have called Senator Zaddy, they used to be, these folks, not Grant Houschild, but I think certainly Senator Klein was not elected as a conservative Dem. That was not his brand. That was not what he ran on.
But he certainly has a district. Oh, sorry. But he certainly represents a district. I mean, this is a question of, are you running as a Democrat and Republican, or are you representing those parties, or are you representing your district? And certainly Senator Klein or Senator Seeberger, who brought this motion, represents a district that is not deeply blue. I think Senator Seeberger won by a couple hundred votes, 200-300 votes. So that's certainly not
and she'll piss off enough Democrats next time around for a Republican to win. And my point is not whether they represent their district. It's whether you're a leader or a follower. And when Democrats put their finger to the wind to decide what kind of a Democrat they're going to be and what kind of Democrat they're going to label themselves, they hurt the brand of the party. They hurt their own brand, and so that's all I'm saying, right? Is that like Matt Klein in particular, like I said, was never before someone who identified as a conservative Democrat, and suddenly he's a conservative Democrat only because Donald Trump won. And, so that was the motive. That was when the change happened. It was not because there was some like some magical moment in their districts, like, oh, I suddenly heard my constituents who've been saying this all along. Please, it's a little sad.
Well, but they hurt their own brand. Okay, so we're kind of meshing the first couple of things on the run sheet here. But Senator Klein this week announced that he's running for CD2
to replace
Angie Craig.
Yeah,
and Angie Craig certainly had some votes that I would assume, and I know that you did not didn't like, right? I mean, and yet she outperformed in CD2, her district, in this last election. She outperformed, I think, all Democrats. She outperformed expectations. She broke that district has been maybe a 3 or 4 point district. And I should look. She won by 7-8 points.
She won. I think she won by 14 points.
Was that many? It was handily won a really traditionally swingy district. So
Well, I think.
Yeah. So how did that hurt her brand? You're saying it hurts their brand. How did that hurt her brand? To be a little more.
It didn't hurt her brand. She's been awful for a long time. But listen, one thing you could do with a popularity of 14, of winning by 14 points, is to stand on principle. Say, for example, the American principle in the Constitution of due process. Instead, what Angie Craig decided to do with her 14-point victory was to welcome Donald Trump by opening the door to the kidnappings that we are seeing now on a daily basis, and like literal U.S. citizen children being deported without due process, and people with legal residence being deported without due process. I think that will be a decision that we look back on like as supporting Japanese internment or supporting the Dred Scott decision, because right now this country is, like, I believe, already far gone in a constitutional crisis. But when the U.S. government does away due process for immigrants or anyone, it undoes due process for U.S. citizens. Like this is the most slippery of slopes. And so when, as we stumble toward like full on authoritarianism under this regime, we can have folks like Angie Craig to thank. And those and all those folks who are supporting her, folks like Brad Tapke, who like won with the support of immigrants in his district, and who claim to be strong supporters of immigrants, but who support someone who did the equivalent.
You're talking about the Riley-Lakin Act?
Lakin-Riley.
Lakin-Riley Act. Lakin-Riley.
Which allows people to be deported without due process because they are accused, not convicted of, not even processed for, but accused of a crime.
Well, sorry, Javier.
Yeah.
Finish your thought. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, bringing it back to Matt Klein and the Blue Dogs and kind of the CD2 area. I mean, yes, it could be seen as opportunistic to say, well, I'm gonna, the rest of CD2 is more conservative than my area. I'm gonna flip on things and vote with the other Blue Dogs on something like this. But I mean, I want legislators that don't have the same opinion on day one that they do on the last day, that do listen to their constituents. I want that can be persuadable, and whether someone's a leader or a follower, it depends. Are you just blindly following the DFL, or are you blindly following Donald Trump? And we're going to have different opinions on that. But I think that this was an interesting exercise, because some of the people who voted, like Senator Frentz, I don't think he's in a very vulnerable position. He didn't have to.
Feels like a very safe district in Mankato, but certainly a more center left district, right? Mankato is greater Minnesota. Think about Governor Tim Walz, who as a congressperson had an A rating with the NRA, right? Yeah. And then he becomes governor. And so like the politicians evolve. And I think there's a difference between a flip-flop and evolution.
He also had an A rating when he was a member of Congress. A 100% rating on choice in a very conservative district, and kept getting reelected. And I think there are choices people make in politics, and there are many times that voters will say things in all kinds of opinion research. They're like, well, I don't agree with them, but I know where they stand. And that being held as a value. When you don't have a center, a core. I mean, I think it's a fundamental problem for Democrats that, like, these days, like, as the Republican Party has gotten crazier and crazier, like, Republicans like still stand in line and wherever and to a fault. And I think Democrats are just the wishy-washy other extreme very often.
Well, it's also going to be interesting to see. So with Matt Klein running for CD2, who's going to be in line to run for his Senate seat?
We heard a little rumor today.
We heard a rumor, not from the horse's mouth, so I don't know how accurate this is necessarily.
I
heard that a new South St. Paul school board member, Paul Cummings, might be interested.
Friend of the podcast.
So that would be
who I apologize to. He knows what I did.
Well, I know. I was there when you did it.
You have to stop referencing that because it sounds bad. bad.
Yeah,
That does sound bad.
yeah. What you did wasn't as bad as it sounds. But
I like there to be intrigue. I like there to be intrigue.
I want to get us to the federal stuff because we're short on time. But Tony Lazzaro is in the news because
Always a fun thing to talk about.
that thieving pedophile is now suing his attorney for stealing his gold.
Literal gold, you guys.
He's like a leprechaun. He's like a
know.
creepy leprechaun.
You're here to steal me gold.
You're stealing my gold. Or
Where are my ingots?
Where are my ingots?
I had coins.
Bars.
Bullion.
Doubloons.
Doubloons.
Maybe it was in doubloons.
Rubies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rochelle, has anyone paid you as a lawyer ever in gold?
Never.
Here is
Or what was the
an
other
ingot?
metal? What was that weird metal that he had? There was another
Was it
metal.
uranium?
Yeah,
Or, yeah, you're right. He did.
It was
he
not
had some-
uranium.
So odd.
But it sounded like that. Irradium?
No.
Something else. No.
I bet you could
No, but
Google.
it was-
I bet you could Google
Well,
it, and it's
no,
not
Google.
that.
It's uranium.
He had-
I'm
he
pretty
had
sure it's.
ingots of gold, and he had ingots of stuff that I didn't know they made ingots out of.
I guess I didn't. I don't.
I
really
mean,
know what an
silver,
ingot is.
but I don't think it was that. Hold on.
Is an
No,
ingot
it
is
was-
an
it was
ingot
a-
like a
it was
unit
more
of
exotic than
measure? I don't even know what an ingot is.
Well, an England is like a bar, right? But smaller.
It's like
I
a
don't
bar.
know.
It's a bar, like you see in
Oh
like
my gosh.
cartoons when
Yeah.
they rob a bank. They're like bar, like it's the most old timey way of taking your gold.
It's so crazy.
Pieces of 8.
Pieces of 8. He had a
All right.
Ferrari.
All right. Well,
They were trying to get his Ferrari back at one point.
while you're looking that up,
Okay, I'll look.
let's go to national, and we're gonna have to go through this probably a little quicker than we want to. But
Yeah.
Trump says, short-term recession's okay.
Yeah, he did.
And, I guess what do they say? In the long run, economics is about the long run, not about the short run. I read a book in college that said, in the long run, we're all dead, which is factual. But I think it's going to be interesting because, when he says things like that, because he was pressed by a reporter, and he was kind of like, we're gonna have the greatest economy in the world, but might be a short-term recession. Those are the things that people of means can weather, and people who are not in financially strong positions have to be super nervous about. So it is something that he's not on the ballot anytime soon, so there won't be a repercussion. But it is something that probably that reverberates down the ballot if all of a sudden we are in a short-term or long-term recession when people are going to the voting booth. Javier.
I was gonna say, I think that it's just him like shading what he knows is coming, and so it makes him look good when something bad happens. So I think it's just him posturing his own agenda, and I think that you're completely right. It isn't the people on top that gets hurt; it's the people on the bottom that are already struggling that are going to feel that recession first, and they're going to be the last ones when the economy starts going well to start feeling it that it gets better.
Javier, what the hell's going on in Florida?
Yeah. Do you want to run through what that is?
You had posted about.
Just let me just say one thing that is studying about like the many things Trump said this week, especially given sort of like
It's not mine.
Javier, I think you're playing something on your computer.
Oh, why
maybe.
the hell
Oh,
won't
it's
it shut
Amy?
up?
Okay.
There we go.
not it ain't me.
Sorry. Go Florida.
That, what I was going to say about what Trump was saying that was astounding to me, given the way, especially white working class voters, but gains that we made amongst working class voters of all from all communities. The sort of that message of like, girls don't need $30; they could just have 2, and maybe those 2 will be a little more expensive. Just feels like the most incredibly tone-deaf thing, and like never in the history of the United States have Americans been told to consume less.
During wartime, but not during regular time.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, not during regular time, and not what he promised. So it's gonna be wild. So in Florida, there is a crazy scandal that the Miami Herald has covered that hasn't really hit through the national.
Right. When you
spotlight
mentioned
as
it,
much.
I Googled, I immediately went and Googled DeSantis, and I was like, there's literally nothing here.
I've only heard of it through you, and I
Yeah.
looked. Obviously, I looked it up afterwards, but I had not heard of it until you mentioned it.
Yeah, no. So it's consuming Florida media and hasn't broken through yet. I think in part because it's a little complicated, but basically there's a charity that was led by Casey DeSantis's wife. The state had a settlement for I believe it was Medicaid fraud that they settled with a provider, and instead of sending the money from that settlement to the state coffers, as they would be legally required to do, and which like federal law that like requires, that money was instead sent to this charity. And then this charity turned around and made multi-million-dollar donations to political entities that were working to defeat the ballot initiatives the ballot initiative that just barely failed to legalize recreational marijuana. I think it had 57% in Florida, started requiring 60%. And the abortion one, similar, like just almost made it, but they in anticipation of these ballot initiatives, they try to make it harder to amend the Constitution. And so the charity is called Hope Florida. So just a flag for people to look at, because it is wild, and it is like on the surface of it, just so many crimes.
Alleged,
because they were laying they've been laying the groundwork for Casey DeSantis to run to replace her husband, which is also like, banana. I shouldn't use that term, but like authoritarian regime, crazy stuff. But that's where we are anyway. But that seems to, like, now Republican knives are out for the DeSantises. So just look out, read up on that. Miami Herald has been covering them. The Florida political news is just completely consumed with that.
Switching to federal Democrat infighting. So John Fetterman is getting some serious allegations from, it was former staffers, correct, that are very much questioning his mental capacity to continue with the job. How much of an issue is this? And I mean, I know that he ran against Dr. Oz and won, but if they ran a regular, whatever that term means anymore, if they ran a regular Republican in that seat, would that be a seat that would be flippable for the Republicans? But Javier, what are you hearing about what's going on inside the Fetterman camp?
Well, I'd say that I stated it different than in terms of that it's not. I would not frame it as Democrats fighting each other. The profile that was in New York Magazine encouraged people to read. It's a devastating profile, and it's based on multiple sources. Some of them named, some not. People who used to work with him, but shows like wildly erratic behavior, and meaning, like, if this were your friend, you would be working with their family and everyone else to get them help and get them to leave their job to take care of themselves.
Amy, we love you. We care about you.
Right. This is the beginning of an intervention, Amy.
I think you should leave your job.
Right. Good luck, you.
Yeah. No, I'd have to do too much math.
See ya.
She does all the math. We need her at Momentum Advocacy. Yeah, no, that's interesting because Fetterman, he had a stroke. There's the Republican Democrat part of it too. But this is certainly not the first time that there has been any kind of worry, concern about his ability to actually fulfill his duties as a senator.
Well, I feel a little bit of this conversation is something we had with Biden when he was running again, right? And that there's a difficulty that some folks have that are close to people. I'm not saying it's at the same level, but right, we talked about our parents, Javier, right? And your parents get to a certain age or a certain, some health things happen. Right. And then there's our difficult conversations for people to have. I mean, certainly think about Senator Dianne Feinstein, who was like incapable of being a senator, who knows, for years. And her staff was sort of just bringing her around in a wheelchair. She wasn't actually making decisions or voting, and yet she held that position in the Senate. So.
Well, and it talks a lot about mental health too, and I think that there needs to be more conversation about what mental health means. What does it mean when you need to take a break from something and are able to come back to something? Because depression and bipolar and some of those things cycle through, and we don't treat mental health in the same way that we treat physical health. And I think that this is different than aging or dementia. If it's
it could be a stroke though, right?
Yes,
or it could be a residual.
Well, and I think one of the main differences is, and then we have to move along. The difference is that people who are in positions of power, they're not removed from power until it can be assured that the powerful people will retain that power. So the difference between with Biden and with Feinstein and maybe it'll be with Fetterman, the difference between that and then someone like maybe an Al Franken is that Al Franken was able to be dealt with. That wasn't for capacity issues, but he was able to be dealt with because they knew that it was going to stay in Democrat hands, and that that in a lot of ways Tina Smith was a more desirable candidate. And I think you don't see people doing the right thing if it comes at the expense of their own power, and I think that's what we're going to see with Fetterman going
sometimes,
forward.
But like Feinstein, you'd have to assume that California was going to stay.
Well, I don't remember where things were with.
So the thing with this, so like I don't know if any of you had experience with folks who had traumatic brain injury, like anything from concussion, which I've had 2 in the last 2 years, but the concussions are mild relative to what he had, like strokes. And I was in a relationship many years ago with someone who suffered an aneurysm, and the personality changes that are possible, not necessary, that doesn't necessarily happen to everyone, but can be really, really dramatic. And that's what this piece read like to me. He and his wife are not speaking. Apparently, he's isolated from his family. He's isolated from friends. It sounds very, very sad. But what he's also simultaneously taking a lot of heat for like becoming more and more conservative. Here's what I think will happen. I like my reading of tea leaves. I had to predict anything. Is he will become a Republican. I think he'll switch parties, and then
he was very clear on that though, and that came up a few months ago, and he was very, very clear that he was a Democrat and staying a Democrat.
I know, and I'm still saying that's my prediction.
People don't change, but circumstances do. Yeah. So, okay, let's do this.
We'll see. We'll take your prediction.
I'm gonna because we have a bunch of events tonight that we all have to get to. So I'm gonna change up how we're doing this here. So so Javier and Rochelle, why don't if you have any plugs, do it as part before your spanks and things. So let's go to let's skip traditional plugs. Go to Rochelle for your spank and thing.
Okay, so no plugs, but for a spank this week, Brian Ingram, who owns the Apostle Bar in St. Paul, sent out a very scathing letter to the city. And you know that I'm always up for yelling at St. Paul, but talked a lot about the crime, et cetera, that was going on as the reason for the closure of the Apostle Bar in downtown. And it says the guy who 4 blocks down has Hope Breakfast Bar and half a mile up has Gnome that are all under that same space. And so I think that if you want to sit here and talk about how St. Paul is an unfair business climate or that the crime is too high, I think that it's insincere to have a successful business 4 blocks away from an idea that didn't exactly work correctly. And what I need from the business community in St. Paul is to really gather around to figure out how we're going to help St. Paul be better. What is it that we need? What are we doing? Crime is down in downtown St. Paul. I can't believe I'm advocating on St. Paul not being as problematic. But I really I don't think that was a fair assessment of what was going on for the reason for that particular closure. And so for that, don't be a part of the problem, be a part of the solution. Brian Ingram, you are spanked.
And crime is down because downtown.
There's nobody there. There's nobody there. There's
nobody there. Nobody to commit it. And no one to be a victim.
You know what? You can't.
Well done, Necker.
You can't rob a store that's not open.
It's not open, and nothing is left. So there, there is that. But
we got rid of
what about the Lunds? Nope.
That's closed too.
That's closed too.
Yeah.
Well done,
I
city
know,
council
I'm
and
so-
mayor.
Is that the only thing you had?
No, I think. So just a quick thank. Last week, Sue Abderholden, who is the executive director of NAMI, announced her retirement. She's a long-term fighter for, individuals with mental health and mental illness, and I've seen her step up in so many ways across the political spectrum to make sure people's voices are heard.
Decades.
Yep, for a long time. So my thank is just to her for her amazing service to the state of Minnesota.
She was someone who I was always very intimidated by until I got to work with her a little bit and just saw what.
She's so amazing.
Just an amazing. She is. She is
delightful.
She is mental health Yoda, and there's going to be a huge hole
gap.
to be filled when we start the session next year.
So thanks, Sue.
Javier.
So a plugs tonight. I am hosting the Moth Story Slam at the Amsterdam Bar and Hall in downtown St. Paul, a business that is still open.
Yes.
So come and don't get yourself, and you won't get yourself mugged because
There's no one there.
those seats are gone.
Yeah.
But tonight's theme is only in St. Paul. There are tickets left. It's a large venue, so we can pack them in there. So come. I'm really looking forward to it because there are many good St. Paul stories I am expecting. I will also be hosting the Moth that on the 28th at the Parkway Theater. The theme that night is drama. So that should be exciting. And I'll,
Should I go?
We should go.
yes. Yeah, well, I know. It's like, you know that meme, am I the drama?
Is it
Amy,
me?
you are the drama.
Is it me?
Is it me? So my thank this week, this story bums me out because it's another example of in an extremely polarized society. Just because the people you don't like are mad about something doesn't mean that either that they're wrong or that you need to embrace that thing. And I'm referencing the story of a Minnesota woman who was caught on video hurling a racist slur at a child, a small child with autism. Was caught on video, and the woman posted a GoFundMe. It was not a GoFundMe. It's another one of those things. I'm not going to. I don't remember what it is, and I'm not going to name it because I'm not going to send people there. And she raised over $600,000 from people who it seems were reacting to the outrage. I'd say appropriate outrage. Shouldn't we all be outraged? Shouldn't we all be
But it was
outraged
to have her move, so maybe a bunch of people just wanted her to move. There was a bunch of people in Rochester saying, see ya, don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
That is
Listen.
today in Silver Lining. Maybe what they meant was, maybe that's what they meant.
Bye, girl.
Sadly,
And leave it to you to see that.
A lot of people in the country chose to show their approval for hurling a race like the N-word at a young
Child.
like a child with autism. It's really horrific. It's very gross, and all of that is spanked. That whole situation.
Yeah, grow up.
My thank is the Minnesota Senate approves renaming Minneapolis Bridge for late Senator Carrie Zietzik. The 10th Avenue Bridge in Minneapolis, which spans spans the Mississippi, and connects Carrie and her family's longtime home in northeast Minneapolis to downtown Minneapolis. If this moves forward, the Senate proposal will be named after the late Senator Carrie Zietzik. She, her memory and legacy deserve that honor, and she and the senators voting for this are thanked.
It was very beautifully done on the Senate, very bipartisan, and they did a really good job of tying that Senator Zietzik was a builder of bridges at the Capitol, and that it's very appropriate that they name a bridge after her. And I suspect that will be something.
Let's add that to our agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
That is definitely
Wrong about everything legislative agenda.
Yeah. let's not mention the other ones because it'll.
No, we don't have time. This is when we're on.
Amy.
Yeah.
All right. So first of all, my thank is for the City of St. Louis Park, and for disclosure, I want to say that I represent the City of St. Louis Park at the Capitol, but this is not about Capitol stuff. What has been happening in the City of St. Louis Park is there is a woman who first went to the city council to ask that they stop her neighbor kids from having a basketball hoop in the front of their house. She tried to claim there was some sort of sport court and some complex. What this is what most kids happily grow up with in the driveway area is the basketball hoop. So she complained to the city council. The city council said, we're not going to tell this family they can't have this basketball hoop because you presented nothing really that convinces us that anyone shouldn't, and we want kids to be outside playing. And so the woman sued the city of St. Louis Park. And so now she's declaring for safety and trespassing, which, again, I was at the city council meeting. I didn't hear any proof of any of that. And here's what she said. I have not complained about the noise anywhere else or any other basketball hoops in the neighborhood. I am complaining about this one because it's immediately in front of my door. Yeah, because they're your neighbor. My kitchen window is right there. I have to watch them. I don't want to have to watch them. Dingbat. Back off. The City of St. Louis Park has a fantastic answer where they talk about we want kids to play outside, and she has presented no evidence in court that there's anything that should be held with this injunction. And I want to just add, here's another good thing: the family with the kids has launched a fundraiser, and you can go to their GoFundMe, the Moeding family, MOEDING. They have raised nearly $24,000 for a nonprofit 612 Promise. Its mission is to provide high-quality sports programming for disadvantaged youths in the Twin Cities. And the Wolves have invited the family, yay Wolves, to Thursday night's game against Golden State Warriors. That's how it should be. Go City of St. Louis Park. Go Moeding family. Go Wolves.
Glad they weren't there last night.
Yeah, okay, hush now. But they're going to win now. Okay. Anyway,
I think you're muted,
and
Javier.
that Lady Ramos can just bite us.
Yeah.
What an uplifting story. Thank you, Amy.
Thank
That's
you.
So sweet.
Is there
even the Timberwolves got it?
Oh, thank you. Isn't that nice? Do you have a video for my spank? If not, Gabe,
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's go. So this is my spank, and you're going to see very quickly why. It's in conclave news today.
All of that takes time. One thing to understand is that all of that takes time. We imagine in the conclave that there's all this charged political debate going on.
Wait for it.
No, inside the Sistine Chapel itself, virtually the entire time that the cardinals are inside is given over to the ritual of the balloting. Each ballot takes about an hour and a half, and with this extraordinary
Wait for it.
electors, it'll probably even take a little longer.
So they sit the whole time? They don't stand up and
Most of them will tell you that while that's going on, they're sitting reading their breviary. That's a book of prayers that clergy have, or praying a rosary.
Yes.
The one thing we know they're not doing is checking Instagram because their devices have all.
I believe the kids call it raw dogging it.
No, that is not.
Yeah,
that is not what the kids call it. That is not what the kids call it.
That's not what raw dogging means.
You spanked.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you like my spanks and thanks?
About the conclave? Not about the conclave.
Yeah.
I know.
Dogging the conclave? What?
No, they're
wrong about raw dogging.
they're wrong about raw dogging.
Yep.
Yes, they
And they're
are.
spanked.
They needed to Google that, or maybe they couldn't do that at work, and there's a reason for that. Did you have any?
Oh yeah, I mean, just you catch me on Al
All
Jazeera
the
English. I did a
plugs.
couple interviews and
Yeah,
TRT World
yeah.
News and Times Radio, and I will be on Almanac this Friday, and Friday I'll be on Capital Clash on WCCO 830, and I think that's it.
Bob.
for now. That's good. Oh, Bob Sansevier every Tuesday with Bri Dog. I'm Bri dogging it.
Raw dogging.
That's
We're
what
not
the
gonna
kids
keep
are
that
calling
Do I
it.
want that to be a thing?
No.
I might.
I
might.
No. Stop.
Maybe it's not the same as what they said.
No.
Second guess it.
Anyway. Okay. Let's go to me. I will try to be brief. My spank is going to be to Governor Tim Walz's adult daughter, Hope. She is 24, and she is more and more kind of entering into the political fray on behalf of her dad, and that is fine. And obviously everyone's allowed to do that. One of her TikToks or one of her videos this week, I just thought was super weird. So Tim Wall's daughter claimed that running, so the physical act of running, not like running for office, but like running down the street, running is a political act that is only for the privileged. Hope Wall said, running as an act is political. And you know who taught me that? Tim Walz, she said. The first thing he told me when I was getting into running in high school was, she doesn't do it anymore, she says, is that the first thing he told us that it's a privilege to be part of the running community and is a privilege that not all people have access to. Running is the least privileged of any sport you can come up. You don't need another person. You don't need money. You don't need to do anything other than go out and run. And we all have seen people that have been successful in running who don't have shoes. I talked to a friend of mine who ran in the Boston Marathon, and he said that there were people running who didn't have legs. So I think that we don't have to make absolutely everything about privilege and class, and I just think that she was just straight up wrong. And her real point was trying to shame somebody who is a TikToker who interviewed lots of political people, including her dad, but then interviewed somebody at the White House, and that was deemed to be inappropriate by her. So she is spanked. Find the video. It's super weird. And then I've been doing a lot of animal things lately. So for my
okay, that sounded weird.
That does sound weird.
He's been bride dogging it.
Bride dog.
Bride dogging it.
No,
well,
see, rethought.
But this is my.
Well, it can mean many things.
This is my thank, and we don't want to make fun of this because as the doggy daddy of a Beagle Jack Russell mix,
it looks like Rizzo.
It does look like Rizzo a little bit. But I'm going to thank the Trump administration and the NIH for shutting down a lab that was notoriously being accused, quite credibly, of slaughtering beagles for over 40 years. Aww. And I realize that there are reasons that you do animal testing sometimes, but good God, you should never do it unless it is 100% necessary, and that is becoming less and less necessary. And beagles are so lovely, and I love them so much, and I am very glad that this has happened. I won't show any more of the pictures than what Gabe has up there now, but they are heartbreaking and terrible, and I am very glad that this lab has been shut down, and others like it should hopefully follow suit very soon. And with that, I am GOP strategist and warming up the bride dog, Brian McDaniel.
And I am bride dogging it all week.
Nope.
Amy Coke.
Nope. Now I hate it.
Amy Coke.
Fully opposed to bride dogging. Russia Westland.
Now he loves
We're taking
it.
voting.
Javier?
I am pro raw dog. Javier, what do you do?
He knows what it means.
And we are.
Oh yeah, I know that.
We are wrong about bride dogging.
Everything.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, look at that blue dog on the
Cute.
screen. And
Bernice.
a Burmese. What is
Good
that?
luck